Hello everyone, welcome to History and Culture. Many viewers of Chinese historical dramas set in the Qing Dynasty often come across such scenes. During the early morning court sessions, the emperor sits majestically on the high dragon throne, sternly scolding his ministers. The ministers, heads bowed and silent, fear saying anything wrong that might lead to their demise. Some find such depictions amusing, even imagining the ministers silently praying, "Let this end soon, my legs are going numb." However, real court life during the Qing dynasty was far more complex than these dramatized portrayals suggest. According to historians, Qing court sessions followed a strict system. Officials allowed to participate in morning court at the Forbidden City were typically high-ranking members of the government. They would assemble in the Hall of Supreme Harmony to report to the emperor on various matters from the past day or several days. While this might sound like a typical morning meeting, the preparation behind it was anything but ordinary. Rigorous preparations for court. Unlike modern office workers, these officials often burned the midnight oil the night before, sorting and preparing the matters they needed to report to the emperor. From local affairs to national issues, every detail had to be meticulously accurate to avoid mistakes in front of the emperor. Staying up late to work was practically routine for these ministers. Strict courtroom etiquette, rules for survival. When attending court, ministers also had to follow key rules that were not only about decorum but could be a matter of life and death. Rule 1: the emperor can be late, ministers cannot. Morning court typically began around 5 a.m., meaning officials had to arrive at the palace by 4 a.m. to wait outside the hall. To ensure punctuality, many officials would set out as early as 3 a.m. Given the rudimentary transportation of the time, only the highest-ranking officials could use sedan chairs. And even these could only go as far as the outer walls of the palace. From there, lantern-bearers had to guide them to the hall. For lower-ranking officials, sedan chairs were not an option, they had to walk. In the pitch-dark pre-dawn hours, and since open flames were prohibited inside the palace, they often had to grope their way forward. There were even cases of officials falling into the palace moat, especially when crossing bridges, resulting in injuries or even death. To avoid such mishaps, many lower-ranking officials would arrive early and wait near the palace walls for senior officials with lanterns, following closely behind to borrow their light. In this way, attending court became not just a test of endurance but also required a bit of strategy. Severe consequences for tardiness. Despite their best efforts, some ministers still ended up being late. The penalties for tardiness were harsh. At best, they faced salary deductions. At worst, they were accused of disrespecting the emperor, which could endanger their lives. The tradition of punishing tardy officials dates back to the Tang dynasty. For instance, during Emperor Xuanzong's reign, officials who were late or absent without cause could lose 3 months of salary, referred to as losing 1 season's pay. By Emperor Suzong's reign, the punishment was slightly reduced to 1 month's pay, which, while less severe, was still a significant loss for officials. However, chronic absenteeism, such as missing court for an entire month, was treated as a criminal offense, punishable by up to 1 year in prison. Military leaders faced even stricter penalties. By the Ming dynasty, punishments grew even harsher. The Ming Code specified that a single instance of tardiness warranted 20 lashes on the spot. Being late 3 times in succession meant a punishment of 100 lashes. For elderly officials, such beatings could easily result in permanent disability. During the Qing dynasty, the tolerance for tardiness was even lower. While corporal punishment like that of the Ming was rare, violating court rules could be deemed a serious offense. At worst, it could cost an official their life. Attending court, therefore, was not just a challenge of punctuality but also a nerve-wracking ordeal. Rule 2: don't eat too much before court. Another unspoken rule in the Qing dynasty was that many officials avoided eating breakfast or refrained from eating too much before court. The reason was simple: if they arrived at the Forbidden City only to find the emperor had not yet begun court, they had to wait outside the hall. If during this wait they suddenly needed to relieve themselves, it would be both inconvenient and potentially disastrous. Leaving one's place could lead to being late, a serious breach of palace etiquette. In modern workplace meetings, a boss might grumble about someone frequently excusing themselves, jokingly saying, "like a donkey that eats too much before grinding." It might end there with some laughter. However, in the Qing dynasty, such behavior in the palace could be seen as highly disrespectful. At best, it would result in a severe reprimand; at worst, it could be considered treasonous, with consequences that could extend to one's family. These historical anecdotes reveal that attending court during the Qing dynasty was far more grueling and perilous than what television dramas might depict. It was a test of both physical stamina and mental vigilance. Curious about language use in the Qing dynasty? Some may wonder, since the emperors of the Qing dynasty were Manchus, did they speak Mandarin or Manchu in court? In the early Qing period, Manchu was the official language, and many officials were required to master it to understand the emperor's commands. However, learning Manchu was no easy task. Historical records indicate that mastering Manchu was as challenging for Qing officials as learning English is for modern Chinese. The grammar was complex, and officials had to memorize a vast vocabulary of unfamiliar words. Faced with older officials struggling to learn Manchu, some suggested that the emperor also learn Mandarin for smoother communication. Consequently, bilingual education became a standard for many Qing emperors from a young age. According to the last emperor of the Qing dynasty, he had 2 language tutors as a child, one for Mandarin and another for Manchu. Many emperors placed great importance on learning Mandarin. For example, Emperor Xuanzhi not only enjoyed communicating in Mandarin but was also fond of Chinese poetry and prose. Historical accounts suggest that Dorgan opposed Xuanzhi learning Mandarin. However, Xuanzhi retorted, "If I don't learn Mandarin, how can I understand the officials and govern effectively?" So, what language did Qing emperors use in court? The answer is, it depended on the audience. Qing emperors generally spoke Manchu with Manchu officials and Mandarin with Han Chinese officials. Switching languages was as natural as modern Chinese people using English with foreigners and local dialects for casual conversations with fellow countrymen. The court and morning assemblies. Morning court sessions in the Qing dynasty typically began with a tense atmosphere. Officials had to concentrate fully while reporting their work, as any error could anger the emperor. After listening, the emperor would assign tasks and sometimes issue imperial edicts or make decisions on the spot. After the morning court, officials returned to their posts to relay tasks to subordinates, review documents, and handle affairs, a busy schedule lasting until evening. However, according to historians, the real challenge for Qing officials wasn't the work during office hours or court sessions but the trials after hours. The social challenges after work. In the Qing dynasty, morning court and daily tasks were exhausting, but what truly troubled officials was the complicated social networking after hours. This was the deadly second half of their day. As the saying goes, the officialdom is a battlefield, every deity must be worshipped. Navigating the intricate relationships of the bureaucratic system was an essential skill. Especially in the Qing dynasty, where maintaining and fostering connections was considered a profound art. Take the story of Fan Jin's success in the imperial exams as an example. After Fan Jin passed, local officials rushed to congratulate him and present gifts. The reason was simple: under the imperial examination system, scholars who passed became future power players. Whether to curry favor or avoid trouble, showing support in advance was seen as a wise move in the bureaucratic world. Such rules of the officialdom are vividly portrayed in Chinese historical dramas. For instance, in the great scholar Ji Xiaolan. There's a famous scene where Ji Xiaolan dines with He Shen and other officials, including a newly appointed inspector from Jiangnan. A debate arises over whether a dog is truly a dog or a wolf, seemingly a literary contest but actually a subtle power struggle. This leads to a humorous pun: the minister is a dog, and the inspector eats ****, illustrating the hidden rivalries of the court. In another drama, The Emperor Guangxu advises his minister Li Guangdi, "The capital is a big dye vat, you must stay clean." This remark reveals the unwritten rules of Qing officialdom. Maintaining integrity was no easy feat. Eventually, Li Guangdi, unwilling to join cliques, was sidelined and lost the emperor's favor. Endless social obligations. Historical records are rife with such accounts. The 1882 diary of Yun Yuding describes how Qing officials faced daily gatherings and ever-changing feasts. Yun Yuding once reflected that his original aspiration for a tranquil and meaningful life had been drowned in endless banquets and social obligations, leaving him exhausted and sleepless. He realized that this culture of socializing not only wasted time but also undermined years of scholarly discipline. He wrote in his diary, "If I don't exercise self-restraint, years of accumulated knowledge and character will be utterly wasted." Despite his resolve to avoid such engagements and live a simpler life, reality intervened. On New Year's Day, after vowing to change, Yun Yuding attended 2 banquets the following day and even missed a major sacrificial ceremony due to a hangover on the 3rd day. The renowned late Qing figure Zheng Guofan also exemplifies the struggles of official life. Early in his career in the capital, Zheng frequently attended banquets and social events. It wasn't until a friend's advice woke him up that he began to change his lifestyle. While Zheng strove to maintain discipline and integrity, he could not entirely escape the entrenched social culture of the Qing officialdom. Although Zheng later became known for his diligence and self-discipline, his diaries reveal a keen awareness of how social networking eroded personal values. Zheng lamented, "Even with self-restraint, it is difficult to change the surrounding environment." Lessons from the Qing Dynasty. Historians have commented that Qing officials appeared to live in wealth and splendor but faced constant challenges. They had to navigate not only the political intricacies of court life but also the delicate balancing act of social obligations after hours. This lifestyle left many physically and mentally drained. Yet few could escape it entirely. Though the Qing dynasty is now history, its issues of corruption and internal conflicts remain cautionary tales. The lessons of the Qing dynasty remind us that only through integrity, dedication, and the abandonment of bad practices can true benefits be delivered to the people. This is the History and Culture channel. Liking and subscribing are the greatest help and support to us. Thank you everyone and see you in the next time.